Okay, so today we are going to learn a little bit about paper weaving. So we are going to need 2 pieces of paper. I have colored pieces of paper, but you don't necessarily need colored pieces of paper. You could just use white piece of paper. If you have an old magazine that your family isn't reading anymore, you could rip out 2 pages from here. We just need 2 pieces of paper, and they need to be about the same size. So one can't be really big and another one really small. They do need to be about the same size. We also need a pencil and a scissors and a straight edge. A straight edge is just something with a straight edge. So in this case, I'm using a ruler, and that allows me to draw straight lines by running my pencil along it. But you can use the side of a book, the side of a magazine, the side of a notebook, the side of your iPad even, in order to do this. So the first thing we're gonna do is to take 1 piece of paper and we're gonna fold it in half this way. And when we do that, we wanna make sure that the edges and the corners are lined up. We don't want a really sloppy fold like this. We want it to be nice and neat. There are a couple ways to fold a piece of paper. One, if you fold it lengthwise and it gets kind of skinny, I call that folding it hot dog because it kind of looks like a hot dog bun. We are not doing that today. We are folding it in half this way. Or hamburger. Some people call it hamburger and hot dog folds. So this is what we're doing with this piece of paper. I'm gonna put my other piece of paper over here so you can see this one. The next thing we're gonna do is draw lines. Actually, I'll start over here. And I'm gonna use my ruler. You can use the side of a book again, or kind of whatever you want that you have that will let you draw a straight line. But I do want our lines to be about 2 fingers apart. So when we're drawing our lines, I want them to be about 2 finger width apart. Meaning we don't want our lines super close together. We don't want them super far apart. We want them about as wide as 2 fingers, or I'm making mine as wide as a ruler. And you'll see why in a second, because we are going to do some cutting. And if your lines are really close together, it might make things a little bit tricky. So I'm going to draw lines across this whole folded paper, just like this. And again, my lines are going to be about 1 ruler width. If you're not using a ruler, if you're just using something else, they're going to be about 2 fingers apart. But they're also, these lines are not going to go all the way to the top of the paper. So I started at the bottom, which is the folded edge. So I started at the folded edge right here, not at the top edge right here, at the folded edge. And then I drew lines that go almost to the top of the paper, but not quite. So almost to the top of the paper, not quite. And I did that all along the whole paper. And the reason why is when I am then going to cut along my lines, I don't want to cut my paper into strips. I just want to cut them so that there are slits in my paper. And so when we unfold it, it looks kind of like this. So again, these little strips are not falling off. Everything's still attached, but you can see we have these slits in our paper. All right. The next thing we are going to do is we are going to work with our second piece of paper. So we're going to take this piece of paper, we're going to put it to the side. I am going to take my yellow paper. Yours does not have to be yellow. And I'm going to fold it in half this way. We're going to use a straight edge and a ruler again to make lines about 2 finger widths apart. But this time, instead of stopping at the top, before you get to the top, I'm gonna make the lines go all the way through from the top to the bottom. And if you are following along with me, you can go ahead and feel free and pause this video whenever you need to pause it, so that you can catch up and we can be in the same place. All right, almost done. And I'm using my ruler to do the widths, but you don't have to. So again, about 2 fingers or a ruler width apart. And this time I went all the way from the top to the bottom. I'm not leaving any space. And when I cut my paper, it's gonna cut off because we're gonna be cutting that whole line and it's gonna create these strips. So I'm making a little pile of strips right here. I'm cutting kind of quickly. If you are cutting, I would highly encourage you to go more slowly. Usually with littler kiddos, I say scissors take a little bite. Little bite will make it right. So don't do big sloppy chopping to your paper. Go really slowly and have those scissors taking little tiny bites until you have cut along all those lines. And you can see at the end, I have this little tiny skinny line at the end. I don't know if I'm gonna use that, so I'm gonna put this one to the side. And now I have all these strips of paper, which is great. So then, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use both these strips and my first sheet of paper to weave paper together. So I'm gonna take one piece of paper that's a strip, and I'm gonna take this piece of paper where I have the slots, and I'm going to weave this piece of paper over. So I'm gonna put it over that first little strip of paper, and then under the second one, then over the next one, then under the one after that, then over, then under, then over, and then under, and then I'm gonna make sure it's straight, like that. And that is how you weave paper. Now, if you have glue at home, some of you might not, but if you do have glue at home, I highly encourage you to take some glue, lift the corner, so lift the corner of this up like this and glue it down, and that's going to keep your weaving in place. And then you can do it to the other side. So you lift up that little corner, put a little bit of glue down, and glue it down like that. Back and forth, and then I'm going to twist the bottom, put my glue cap back on so my glue does not dry out, and then I'm going to continue with my second strip of paper. Now, if I started, and you can see the yellow on top of the pink strip right here, I'm going to do the opposite when I do the second strip, meaning here I started with the yellow strip of paper going over the pink strip of paper, and so in the next line that I'm going to weave, I'm going to put the yellow under that pink. Then I'm going to go over, under, over, under, over, under, and over until I have it all the way through. Now, as you can see, if you're looking at mine, sometimes your strip of paper tends to wiggle its way up. So sometimes you have to take a minute at the end and kind of push it back down so that it's in line right above where you did your first weaving. I have glue, so I'm gonna go ahead and glue my strip down so it doesn't move around. If you don't have glue, I don't want you to worry about it. Oops, I just dropped my glue. So I glued that part down, lifted this up, put some glue here, glued that part down. And then I'm gonna keep going. So I'm gonna keep going and I'm gonna alternate. So if the yellow went underneath that first pink strip, then when I do this again, I'm going to put the yellow over the pink strip when I move up. And I'm gonna keep going until I have it in. And you can see it forms kind of a checkerboard pattern. This is the really basic basket weave for paper. And if you have thought that this was pretty tough to do, then you can go ahead and you can just leave it plain. However, if you had an easier time and you think you want to take this a step further, what we can do is we can go ahead and we can decorate it. So once we finish weaving, and we're going to use all of these to go all the way up, making a checkerboard pattern all the way up, you can actually go in with crayons or colored pencils or markers, kind of whatever you have around the house, and you can add designs and patterns. A pattern is repeating shapes and colors, for those of you that may not know, to make your design a little bit more interesting. So I'm adding some blue diamonds and some orange dots to mine, and if I add it to one, I'm gonna go ahead and add it to the next square, so that I am making it a pattern, which means these shapes and colors are repeating. So you can add something like this. And you can keep going. You can add patterns to the pink squares or whatever color paper you're using and to the other ones. And you can make them more complicated than this or less complicated than this, kind of up to you, and that is optional. So if you are a kiddo who feels like this is so easy peasy lemon squeezy for you and you want to make it a little bit more decorative, put a little extra touch on it, go ahead after you finish this weaving, then you can go ahead and you can add those details. The most important thing I want you to do though is I want you to master the basic paper weave. I think it helps with your motor skills, and it also helps create beautiful patterns, and it gives you an idea of how weaving is done. So if you decide to move on to more complicated weaving, like with yarn or with twigs or something like that, then you have an idea of how to do it. When you are all done with this, so you can see mine is like half finished, it's not really done, and I really do think that I would add some more pattern to mine if I had a little bit more time in this video, but I don't want to make you wait for it. But I do want you to take a picture of it when you're done and submit it to me, and I can't wait to see them. All right, good luck.